Hello, and welcome to another edition of Atlas Information Live. I'm your host, Atlas Alex, and today we're going to be covering an area of spirituality which has unfortunately been, as so many aspects of spirituality has been, twisted and corrupted. So much so that it is now almost achieving the inverse of what it was originally meant for lack of a better expression. But before we begin, I just wish to throw up a banner here. Not throw up, not throw up, but just put up a banner here. If you want to participate in the conversation today, there's the link. You're more than welcome to pop on, and audio only, or audio and video, however you wish to come on, and then we can have perhaps a bit more of a lively discussion today. This topic was one which came to me because of some recent developments in my life, and I'm not sure if I've discussed this with all of you yet, because it's relatively recent. But I've enrolled in the University of Metaphysics out of Sedona University, Arizona, to do to get my PhD in metaphysics. And in the process of beginning the coursework for that program, I ran into something which I had never seen before, I had never experienced. And that is a different kind of approach to doing manifesting and doing affirmations. Now, if you're not familiar with manifestation, visualization, and affirmations, they are one of the most popular practices promoted by New Age gurus, for sure, but also by the self-help industry. And if you are familiar with affirmations, then you probably know them to be something along the ballpark of positive mental programming. See, they've also, you will find them propping up, or the same technology, if you will, propping up in things like NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, and positive self-talk and positive reinforcement. And you will hear affirmations as part of subliminal meditation CDs, or subliminal CDs that you listen to during the night while you sleep. I guess, what do they call it? Nocturnal subliminal messaging, or somnambulous subliminals, or something like that. But anyway, the point is, the idea is that you're programming your subconscious mind with these affirmations. And they are, just as the word suggests, they affirm something. To make an affirmation is to make a bold, positive statement of fact. This is how it is. It's not a suggestion, it's not a question, it's not a theory. It is a statement of fact. It is an affirmation. It is firm, in other words. That's where we get the root word of the word affirm, is firm, solid, stable, foundational. And I always felt that there was something off with how affirmations were taught, promoted, yes, by the self-help industry, of course, but also by the New Age. And even individuals like Wayne Dyer, who I had tremendous respect for, and he was a psychologist, a psychiatrist, I should say. But this notion, this idea that you can talk yourself into spirituality, into being, seemed erroneous to me. And partly because the mind can only get you so far. Belief can only get you so far. And affirmations can only affect your mind, your thinking, your beliefs. And yes, through repetition, you can impose those beliefs such that they get taken up by your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind starts believing them as well. And this means that in any given circumstance, you are far more likely to respond in a way that reflects the nature of the affirmation. But more aptly stated, by doing affirmations and programming your subconscious mind to believe certain things about yourself, your mind is more apt to react to circumstances in a way that appears in alignment, in a way that is congruent to whatever beliefs the affirmation was affirming. And that's why they call it in psychology neuro-linguistic programming. It makes sense. You are programming the mind with a certain set of beliefs that are going to manifest, if you will, in given circumstances, right? You're going to react according to your beliefs. And this is entirely at the core of so much of the New Age and the self-help movement. And it goes back to that little parable of the little engine that could. You know the little story, the little fable about the little engine, the little train who is facing these ever steeper and ever more challenging mountain passes, and he has this oversized load that he has to carry, but he's just a little engine. That's why the parable is called the little engine that could, because the way the parable goes is he kept telling himself, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And then eventually he graduates to, I know I can, I know I can, I know I can. And he's able to overcome these mountains pulling this load. And the moral of the story is essentially the foundations of neuro-linguistic programming and the foundations of affirmations. If you tell yourself often enough, if you affirm often enough something about yourself, your mind will sooner or later start to believe it. I don't know if you see any sort of inherent danger with this. You know, a few caveats, a few quid pro quo with regards to this. What else? Where else have you heard this? What else does it sound like? And what other aspects of life have we been confronted by individuals and methodologies that state repetition is the key to changing people's minds? Last week, we talked about Edward Bernays, who was Sigmund Freud's nephew and basically the father of modern marketing and propaganda. And he was not the only one, but he also stayed like but also Goebbels, who was the propaganda czar for Adolf Hitler. And Goebbels said, you know, you repeat a lie often enough and people start to believe it. But more importantly, even you yourself will start to believe it. That this is the key, the cornerstone of psychological manipulation, of propaganda, of, quote, changing hearts and minds. It's repetition over and over and over again. But the propagandists, and the marketers are only too happy to feed the public lies and repeat and affirm lies to them over and over again. In other words, false beliefs, whatever beliefs that the propagandist wants people to have, whatever beliefs that are beneficial to the ends and the goals and the means of the propagandist and those he represents, the interests that the marketer or the propagandist represents. Benjamin has jumped in here with a comment. He says, to me, this technology resembles a kind of fallen angel influence. The idea of manifesting outcomes purely through one's own will seems at odds with the spirit of the prayer, thy will be done. In that sense, these practices feel uncomfortably close to what I would consider a form of witchcraft. Well, as is so often the case, Benjamin, you're one step ahead of me. But that's okay, because in the description to today's live stream, I mentioned that this whole manifestation and affirmations, the way people do them, may have left an uncomfortably bitter taste in your mouth. There's something not right about it. There's something sticky. There's something gross. There's something. It's just off. It's just, as you said. It's there's an influence happening there, and we might say, yeah, but these affirmations are, I am I am one with God, and I am unlimited abundance, and I am unlimited love, and I am right. They're so beautiful, and they're so glorious and flamboyant, these affirmations, and they paint such beautiful spiritual pictures. They're such beautiful beliefs about oneself. Aye, but there's the rub. Are they true? And does repeating them over and over and over again make them true? And I have found myself banned from various Facebook groups, new age groups, but also there's a lot of overlap between the self-help and the new age industries, more so now than ever before. There's always been an overlap, but there used to be a more clearly defined boundary between the two. But now they've very much merged into one, and in no thanks in part to everyone from Tony Robbins to David Bayer and even Oprah and the people that Oprah and the books that have been on Oprah's reading list and so on. But also, we discover that Olympic athletes have been using visualization now for decades to improve performance, specifically during competition, to break world records. They will sit and they will meditate and they will visualize themselves jumping farther, throwing longer, and et cetera, and running faster, beating the world record. And they will visualize themselves doing that over and over and over and over again. And they will put tremendous force of energy, their creative energy, into that. And that's more of the metaphysical science of manifestation itself. Affirmations, they also, like in psychology, they're using affirmations in psychology now for people to reprogram erroneous beliefs that they have gained over the years of experience, or they were indoctrinated into, let's say, cults, or some other, through some other means. They were raised improperly, or they had corrupt teachers along the way, and they filled their heads with all these erroneous beliefs. And in order to overwrite those beliefs, psychologists and self-help and counselors uh, will have people journal, yes, but also will have them write their own affirmations to overwrite the erroneous beliefs in an attempt to, again, overwrite, or to have a second set of beliefs that are more positive and are more life affirming. There's that word again, affirmation. And that at, even if the new beliefs don't overwrite the old ones, but at the very least, they offer that individual a second set of beliefs that they can draw upon. Not only the one conditioned set of beliefs that they were raised in or indoctrinated into, or that they developed through years of abuse or trauma, or erroneous beliefs, etc. So like negative self-talk, for example, for years, like negative self-talk is a kind of affirmation. It's a kind of neurolinguistic programming. If you're constantly, if you have the little voice in your head constantly saying, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not lovable, um, you know, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, and that little voice inside of your head repeats that over and over and over, and well, guess what? You're going to start believing that, and you're going to grow up believing that you're unlovable and that you're not deserving, and so on and so forth. So the affirmations come along and they make an attempt to undo that by brute forcing a whole set of new affirmations. I am deserving. I am lovable. I am good enough. I am capable. Right? It's a little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. And I know I can. I know I can. I know I am. Right? I think not even I think I am, but I know I am. I know I am. I know I'm deserving. I know I'm good enough, et cetera, et cetera. But again, there's a kind of issue with this when we start getting into areas such as abundance mentality, prosperity mentality, right? Manifesting success, manifesting prosperity, manifesting romance. When I say success, you can use your imagination and envision the whole myriad spectrum of life's accomplishments that people can deem as success from their point of view. Success in money, success in love, success in notoriety, in other words, fame, right? There's fame, there's fortune, but there's success in peace and joy and happiness, success in travel, success in your hobbies, success in, it just goes on and on and on. And you can prosper in all these different facets of your life. You can prosper in health, prosper in wellness, prosper in socializing, your network. You can prosper in your social network. You can prosper in your business network. You can prosper in how many followers you have on social media. You can prosper in fame. You can prosper in the arts or in music. And it goes on and on. Like, prosperity isn't limited only to money, only to monetary goals or accomplishments or accumulations, right? Prosperity, again, spans the entire breadth of the human experience. What you consider to be success in your life would fall into whatever categories you include in your definition of a prosperous life. Catholics, for instance, and many other cultures may use the term prodigious, right? For example, having many children, a large family, a large extended family. For many people throughout history, that was prosperity. That was success to them. What brought them joy, what was truly meaningful to them, is that they could, when they had family reunions, and the attendees numbered in the hundreds. Even we see this reflected in the Godfather trilogy, where, yes, money is important to these people and power is important to these people and all these things are important to these people, but it all revolves around this family, that the family must prosper, and that it is a family enterprise, and that the family is this entity that is held in the highest regard over any one individual's needs or desires. So Again, prosperity or success can apply in many, many ways. And these affirmations can come along and say, I am the embodiment of prosperity. I am successful. I am the spirit and essence of success. And you can fill in the blank what that means. So that you see, because I am famous, right? I am wealthy. I am prosperous in wealth. I am prosperous in health. I am one with the creative spirit of the universe, and that creative power, that abundant universe. I am one with the essence of that abundant universe. And I can attract abundance in all these different areas of my life. I can attract prosperity in all these different areas of my life because I am one with the essence of that prosperity. I am the living embodiment of that prosperity. And this is, in broad strokes, what these sorts of affirmations are like. And when you get into even more of the spiritual side, the affirmations go a little bit further. We're saying, I am God. I am God. I'm one with the source. I am one with the creator. I am one with the Christ. I am, and, fill in the blanks. And rest assured that in my time, I have met many, many people who thought that way and believed wholeheartedly that they were not only awake, but that they were ascending, or that they were or that they had already ascended. They had talked themselves into it. They had affirmed it to themselves enough times, and they had these experiences, like being able to astral project or having other experiences on psychedelics or what have you, that gave them experiential evidence in support of the beliefs, in support of the affirmations that they were making about themselves. The the issue is, of course, that the mind uh, is a powerful tool of hypnosis. It's a powerful trap for the consciousness, and belief is profoundly that, because people become identified with and attached to those beliefs. And the more someone doubles down on beliefs in the mind and not cultivating self-evident experiential knowledge in their consciousness, you we start to see the the problem, the mistakes with these affirmations, with this manifesting what I want, or manifesting what I am, and affirming what I am, and visualizing myself, to visualize myself as a glorious being of light. I mean, there's a time and there's a place for that, sure. But there's a very fine line, a razor's edge, that we need to walk here, a tightrope, in fact, that we're walking here. And there's no point in belaboring the point or stretching out this preamble any longer, we can look at some case studies and make comparisons. And we can compare, and I can leave it to you to decide for yourself by looking at different versions of the same affirmation and seeing if we can spot the difference, the key difference. And Benjamin says, yes, the human mind can resemble an AI system in some ways. It processes patterns, generates ideas, and can even place us in a kind of self-hypnotic state. That's part of why practices like meditation are so valuable. They help us move beyond the mind's constant stream of thoughts and imaginings to discover what is actually true beneath them. Yeah, that's true. But having said that, we are mortals, and the mind is a useful tool. It's like Einstein said, right? The mind is a useful servant when it is loyal, but it is a cruel and unforgiving master. So on that note, and on your comment here, let's see if we can't dive into some examples and oh, hang on a second. My monitor just died. Hang on, I gotta plug it back in here. Okay. All right, are we back? Let's see if I can't are we back? Bear with me just one moment because my monitor went blank and I have to put everything back the way it was. Okay. So, manifesting mistakes. Okay. So, let's look at some affirmations examples. I don't know why that text came off the screen, but okay, here are affirmations. Let's look side by side comparisons, okay? There are some as taught by the New Age and self-help, and what I'm going to suggest and propose as better versions, right? The right way to do the very same affirmations, or at least very functionally similar affirmations. And we can, and I open, I invite you to come on if you want to have a conversation about it, or just participate in the comments. There's the link if you feel like joining. I'll leave that on here, or by all means, you can just type your comments. But each one of these is going to be numbered, so we can cross-reference them. So let's look at the first pair. Okay, so we have this affirmation: I live confidently each day, knowing that I am the epitome of prosperity and success. Right? Typical affirmation. Now, compare that to, I live confidently each day, knowing that the source of my prosperity is God working through me and directing me. We can do this one of two ways. We can stop and have a conversation one by one, or I can go through the list of all of them, and then we can have a discussion once we've seen all the different examples. So unless somebody interrupts me with a comment, I'm going to keep going, because I'm here. My purpose is to show, and the show must go on. So I'm going to show you these things, and the whole thing is to hopefully to spark within you the intuitive, conscious response and realization as to the right way to do affirmations versus how they're taught and how most people do them. So let's continue here. I am at peace and poised every day in the calm self-assurance that I am the living embodiment of the peace and power of the universe. And for comparison, I am at peace and poised every day in the calm self-assurance that the power of God and the universe prosper me. Number 3, I affirm that I am already prosperous, that I am one with everything that prosper me, and that said prosperity is in the process of materializing for me. I affirm that in the presence of God, I am already prosperous, and that this prosperity is beginning to materialize around me. Number 4, whoops, no. Number 4, as an embodiment of prosperity, all channels of my mind are open so that I may see where and when to lay claim to that which brings me prosperity. Or alternatively, all channels of my mind are open so that I may receive intuitive direction from the God of my being as to where to lay claim to that which brings me prosperity. Number 5, I radiate out auric vibrations of prosperity and well-being wherever I may be each day. And compare that to, as a servant of my innermost being, I radiate out his auric vibrations of prosperity and well-being wherever I may be. Number 6, I telepathically project forth thoughts into the psychic atmosphere that I am already a prosperous person. And compare that with, I remember my divine mother at all times, knowing she furnishes me with all I need to prosper on the path, including all my tests, trials, and ordeals. And finally, each day I share in the wealth of God's abundance, which is my birthright as an embodiment of prosperity. And compare that with, each day I share the wealth of God's abundance around me. I guess I'm going to hide that banner now. Benjamin says, the perspective on the right feels much more aligned with Scripture. Our role is to cultivate ourselves into righteous vessels, allowing the goodness of our divine essence to be expressed through our lives. Prosperity, in this sense, shouldn't be defined by the monetary system, often associated with the beast system, but rather by genuine spiritual strength and inner abundance. I like number 5 the most, he says. As a servant of my innermost being, I radiate out his auric vibrations of prosperity and well-being wherever I may be. Thanks for that. Thank you for that, Benjamin. Here we have this list, and of course, this is by no means an exhaustive list. My purpose here was to show case studies, meaningful case studies where we can do a side-by-side comparison and compare and contrast the two approaches and see if we cannot pinpoint the mistakes. Where is the error? Where is the problem? Specifically, metaphysically, scientifically, psychologically. right? What is the mistake that is being made on the left-hand side? Yes, Benjamin identified that on the right-hand side, it seems it's much more aligned with Scripture and the notion that we are here to be vessels for divinity, for our divine essence. And not only vessels, remember, a vessel is something that carries forth, it contains, but then it gives forth what it contains, right? A vessel is not only something that goes from point A to B on the water, a vessel can also hold water. But a vessel that holds water pours that water out, like a vessel of wine pours that wine into glasses so that others can enjoy the wine, right? That's a vessel. Benjamin says, the error, I guess, is too much identification and pride with the vessel, right? The body or the false self. The identification and attachment and these statements of affirmation are, in many ways, a kind of self-aggrandizement. These affirmations prop up the I, the ego. I am this. I am that. I do this. I do that. I radiate. I do this each day. I. And that I already have God's abundance, and I already have unlimited abundance and unlimited peace and unlimited happiness and unlimited this and unlimited that. But it's all self-centered. It provides, it leaves no room for the higher self, the intermediary spirit between God and man, which is our own individual essence of the Christ, our innermost intimate Christ. And perhaps most egregiously, it makes no mention of our Divine Mother, the Divine Feminine, who from her bosom pours forth the milk and honey that nourishes the whole of the universe and all beings who are on the path of awakening and self-realization. The whole of the manifest universe on all of its levels is the body of the Divine Mother. The kingdom and all the different levels of reality of the supernal worlds outside of the absolute are all the womb of the Divine Mother, from which new Christs can be born. Essences, individuated essences of Christ can self-realize and join in the perfect multiple unity that is the Christ of the universe. That we need a womb for that. And the essence of that womb, furnishing us with all we need on our journey, is our individual Divine Mother. Benjamin sort of hit the nail on the head when he also mentioned pride. Because what you absolutely do not sense or feel in any way, shape, or form on the left-hand column. There is a total and complete, utter lack of humility. The affirmations in the left-hand column are utterly devoid of humility. These are all statements of mystic pride. It's self-aggrandizement. It's spiritual narcissism. It's believing that when you shuffle off this mortal coil, your personality is going to ascend into the supernal worlds, and that you, this ego personality that you identify with, is going to go and hobnob with the angels and the seraphim and the resurrected masters and the gods. That you're going to go walking with Jesus in the gardens of eternity. But you're not going to do that, because your personality belongs to your physical vessel, to the character in the video game world. That's part of the shell of the egg, if you will. Now, if the egg hatches, the chick goes on and to live a life as a chicken, but what happens to the shell? There's a metamorphosis, there's a transformation that takes place, and the shell gets left behind. The eggshell served its purpose, but after it's done serving its purpose, you discard it. But there is nothing in that left-hand column that suggests knowledge of this, that accepts that suggests an acceptance that I am a vessel, I am a servant, I am a vehicle for who? For God. And Benjamin said earlier, like in the prayer, and this is, we're going to get to this, but it's right there in the Lord's Prayer. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That we are that earth in microcosm. Right? We are that earth in microcosm. So thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven is through us on this earth, and we in microcosm, it has to be done first, yes, in our heart, in our mind, in our body. So we become the embodiment of God's will. We become the embodiment of the will of our innermost essence of God within. And why would we do that? To give, to serve, to share, to fulfill and deliver the meaning, the purpose of that will on earth for the sake of others. Because God's will, there's method to his madness. God just doesn't, it's not like in Kingdom of Heaven, the fanatical crusaders in Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven, when they're all gathering around the war council, and the fanatical crusaders standing up and say, there must be war. There must be war with the Saracens. God wills it. God wills it. And they're shaking their hand and their fist, and they're wagging their finger in everybody's face, going, God wills it. God wills it. Yeah, no, God doesn't will it. You will it. You want it. And you have this mantra, this refrain, right? This propaganda that you keep telling yourself and everybody around you, God wills it. God wills it. God wills it. Again, no humility, right? It's a complete reversal. It's a complete bastardization and twisting and corruption of the word of God and the will of God to use the will of God as justification for our own desires. Well, there's no difference between the fanatical crusader or the fanatical Muslim, for that matter, who says the same thing, because in Kingdom of Heaven, they show both sides. And there are fanatics on both sides, and there are fanatics on the Muslim side saying, we must destroy the Christians, we must take back Jerusalem. God wills it, God wills it, right? So there's no difference between fanatics invoking the name of God and invoking the will of God in support of their own egotistical, worldly, selfish goals and ambitions. There's no difference between that and the affirmations in the left-hand column. Because affirmations that invoke the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, the power of God, the essence of the source and creator of all things, the source of peace, the source of love, the source of all prosperity and success. Affirmations that invoke these aspects and elements and absconds them, misappropriates them, and applies them to the eye of the false self, to the desires, the wants, the needs, the fears of the fallen false self. This is just like the fanatics in Kingdom of Heaven wagging their finger, calling for war, calling for genocide, and saying, God wills it. It's just way more sophisticated, clever, and subtle propaganda, these affirmations, than is the brute force, simple-minded, God wills it, wagging my finger and God wills it, right? That might have worked back in medieval times, but since the Second World War, since Edward Bernays, and since modern marketing and everything, right? And the whole new age and self-help industries are all built on the metaphysical science of neurolinguistic programming. So of course they teach what they know. They teach what they know, how they get their success. How do they get their success? They're pitchmen, they're showmen, they're propagandists, they're salesmen. And they've got their buzzwords, and they got this, and they got that, and they've got their mantras, and they use the neurolinguistic programming, and they give people the affirmations on the left-hand column here, and similarly structured, similarly framed affirmations, putting your desire, your greed, your fears, your lack, your desire to ascend, your desire to be grand and live a grand life, and puts that at the forefront and that at the center, as though that is what really matters. Pun very much intended. Whereas the affirmations on the right, I mean, let's be honest, they don't sell any books. They don't sell any courses. They don't sell any subliminal CDs or tapes or you know what I mean? Right? You don't get on Oprah's reading list by publishing a book that has affirmations like the one on the right, like the ones on the right. So it begs the question then, if right? Affirmations are essentially propaganda or what, like neurolinguistic programming. Well, then should we do them at all? Right? But the answer is, if we do them correctly, absolutely. If we do them like on the right here, absolutely. And why? Because we're still mortals and we still have our subconscious mind, which is our psychological hell, which is the domain of ego, the domain of our egos, right? All of our desires, our fears, our anxieties, our selfishness, our narcissism, and gluttony and laziness and all the rest of it, right? So we still have a lot of erroneous beliefs. And to remind ourselves and reinforce in our mind and affirm to ourselves the truth and the pecking order and our place in the scheme of things, we affirm to ourself simultaneously to our lower self, our subconscious self, but also to our higher self, our innermost, by affirming the right way, doing affirmations like in the right-hand column. These are statements that we are making because they become a pledge, like the Pledge of Allegiance in the United States, where people are made to hold up their right hand and say, "I pledge my loyalty to the republic and to the flag and to the people and to the," right? When you're doing affirmations like these on the right, it's you're making a pledge of allegiance to God. You're making a pledge of allegiance to your higher self. And the pledge that you are making is, I will serve as a conduit, as a vessel for the eternal wellspring, which is the source of the well inside of me, for which I shall be the spigot and the vessel, the spigot, the bucket, the vessel, and I shall carry forth the waters of life, drawn from deep within myself, deep within the heart of my earth. And the water that replenishes that well comes from the great almighty source of the divine waters of the universe. You see, there's a structured order here. And we have a role to play. We have our part to play in that. But that part, that role, is absent from the affirmations on the left. On the affirmations on the left, that individual doesn't know their place in the scheme of things and has no humility and makes no pledge of allegiance to his divine mother, to his innermost being, and to the being of his being, the cosmic Christ, Allux, all light, God light, the fire of fires, light of light, and being of beings. No, there's none of that. It's all absent. No, he's pledging allegiance to himself on the left-hand side. But on the right-hand side, practicing such affirmations every day, overcoming negative self-talk, overcoming negative self-belief, overcoming, creating a louder voice inside of us, in our minds, in our subconscious, a voice that is louder than the one that says, I'm not deserving and I'm not good enough. And I'm and you know, I was speaking with a friend of mine who's an artist, and he said that one of his greatest struggles and fears as an artist is that every time he faces a new challenge, a new project, he confronts it, and even though he knows that in the past he's been able to do incredible work, in other words, he has allowed himself to be done in the past, and answers and the way to do things and the intuitive knowledge and the almost automatic, you know, like magic just flowed through him and his work, in his artwork and designs and so on and so forth. But very often he's confronted with new challenges and new problems that are at a next higher level, and the fear comes back, and the questions come in. Oh, but am I going to get the answers this time? Is it going to flow through me again this time as it did once in the past? Or right? So the negative self-talk returns. The algorithm of fear and the self-doubt and the questioning of the self, and I'm not deserving enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to be able to execute, or I'm not going to be able to do it in a way that I'm not going to be able to rise to the challenge and meet this project and fulfill the execution based on the intuition that I receive, so that I'll botch it, basically the fear of botching it, right? um so where do those thoughts come from? I mean, it's coming from egos of fear, right? And pride, because shame, self-doubt, and self-loathing is really the inverse of pride. So those are egos that he has to face. But in the meantime, it can be very helpful and very constructive to have an alternate set of beliefs, an alternate set of affirmations, reminding the mind that, yeah, there's the voice saying, I'm not deserving, I'm not good enough, I'm going to botch it. But side by side, alongside of that, is this pledge of allegiance. I am at peace and poised every day in the calm self-assurance that the power of God and the universe prosper me. I put my faith and trust in God. I put my faith and trust in my divine mother, that she will not deliver me a challenge or a test or an ordeal that is beyond my capacity, that is beyond my ability to rise to that challenge and meet that challenge and be the conduit of the intuitive knowledge and skill and beauty and magic that needs to flow through me in order to meet that challenge and succeed and prosper in this particular test. Right? We need that belief. We need to have that faith. We need to cultivate that belief in ourselves, especially if we have negative self-talk, especially if we've grown up, and many of us on the path of trying to follow a spiritual path, we've been surrounded by a society and civilization and marketing and corporations and all sorts of different influences, right? Atheists and everybody else, right? That were telling us what we were doing was wrong, or telling us we should be doing things differently, or we should be pursuing other things, other avenues, and so on and so forth. And maybe over time, all of their doubts and all of their questioning and their criticisms cultivated and got embedded into our own subconscious mind and manifest in our minds as this negative self-talk. So affirmations are useful, but the right affirmations, empowering us by empowering our innermost Lord and Master, because we are not forsaken. Um, what comes to mind is the archetype expressed in the Ramayana with Rama and Hanuman on their quest to free Krishna. And Hanuman is the monkey god. And he's the one who performs all these feats and acrobatic abilities, and he can morph and he can transform and he gets all of these powers. But the powers that he has come from Rama. And they're in the service of Rama, and both of them in the service of Krishna. We have a more contemporary archetype, a more contemporary mythology that we can turn to for the same archetype, and that's Lord of the Rings. When we see Sam and Frodo on their quest to Mount Doom to destroy the One Ring and restore peace to Middle-earth. To destroy the One Ring is to destroy the wheel of samsara, the wheel of suffering. And there's that iconic line from the film when Sam says to Frodo, I may not be able to carry it for you, but I can carry you. And he picks Frodo up on his back and he starts climbing up Mount Doom. And I don't know many people who can watch that scene and not break down in tears because of the power of the truth of that scene. In that moment, Samwise, a gardener from the Shire, from Hobbiton, a hobbit, but a gardener no less. Think of that, a gardener makes an affirmation in that moment. And the affirmation he says, I can't carry it for you. I am not worthy. I'm not capable of carrying the burden of the One Ring. I can't, that's your burden. I can't carry that burden for you. But in this moment, here and now, I can carry you, because that is what Frodo needed. And that Sam could do and did do and does do. At once, there's this tremendous humility and yet rising to the challenge and doing everything that he can do in that moment to fulfill his oath, because he took an oath earlier in the film, and he doesn't do it on camera. We learn of Sam's oath after the fact. When Sam says, when Frodo jumps in the canoe and he starts crossing the lake to the other side, and he's leaving the Fellowship. He's going on alone. He's going alone into Mordor. And Sam, I'm going to start to cry. Sam comes out of the wood and he starts wading into the water. And Frodo yells to him. He says, "Sam, I'm going to Mordor alone." And Sam says, "Of course you are, and I'm coming with you." And Frodo says, "Sam, you can't swim." And that nothing will stop Sam. He is single-minded. He is getting into that boat, and he is going across the lake, and he is going to Mordor with Frodo. Nothing will stop him, not even death, not even drowning. And sure enough, Sam goes under. and he starts sinking, and because he can't swim, and he's wearing all his gear, and he's got all his metal pots and pans for making stew, and for your right, because hey, you hobbits, right? You have to have your priorities, and he's struggling, and he's underwater, and he's drowning, and then there's that beautiful moment of a hand reaching into the water and pulling Sam out of the water and into the boat. And Sam, completely soaked and dripping wet and coughing up water from his lungs, looks Frodo in the eye and says, "I made a promise, Mr. Frodo. A promise. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee." Gandalf said to him, "Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee." And I don't mean to. I don't mean to. In Lord of the Rings, Gandalf is the Christ figure. He is the Christ. He represents the Christ. He is the wizards come from the high heavens. Now, he hasn't been Christified yet, because that happens in the Two Towers. But regardless, Samwise makes a promise to Gandalf, the Christ. He makes an oath, a pledge to the being of beings to serve Frodo and to not leave Frodo's side. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. And Samwise will wade into a lake and drown trying to stay by Frodo's side, to fulfill his oath, to fulfill his promise that he made to the Christ. A gardener, a hobbit, a simple hobbit, whose greatest joy is fish and chips and watching the love of his life dance. I know her name is Cotton, something Cotton. Nancy Cotton? Josie Cotton? Anyway. The honesty in that, the simple honesty and humility that Sam displays for Frodo, his master. Because Tolkien was very careful, even though he publicly denounced allegory. And he went on the record saying how he hated allegory. But people forget that he said that, they forget the context in which he said that. At the time that he published those books, people were trying to interpret the War for Middle-earth as Tolkien's allegory for the Second World War, for the Nazis. And Tolkien openly and actively campaigned against that reading of his myth. He said he set out to write a myth for England and not an allegory about the Second World War. And he said, I despise allegories. That was the context in which Tolkien said he despised allegories. But in truth, he carefully devised one of the most elaborate and beautiful allegorical mythologies ever devised, such that he carefully selected Sam's profession, that Sam be a gardener and Frodo's gardener. Why a gardener? Because a gardener is who tends to the garden, to the soil, to the fields in which can we plant the seeds and which those seeds grow and flourish. Sam, in his oath to not leave Frodo's side, is like he's tending to Frodo like he would be tending to a sapling in the garden. And a gardener doesn't make anything grow. So why do I spend all this time elaborating this out? Because when we look at the affirmations, the right way and the wrong way, the left-hand side is someone who thinks that they're going to do it. They're doing, and I'm the one. I'm going to take this power for myself. That's Boromir, right? Boromir tries to take the ring from Frodo because he wants the power to protect his people. It's a gift. It's meant to be used. And we see that, and the Boromir has good intentions. It's very tempting to use that ring, the ring of power. But Sam serves the ring bearer. And I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. There's another well, we don't necessarily have to overcomplicate it. But humility and knowing our place and being a servant and structuring our affirmations around that. Now, Benjamin mentioned the Lord's Prayer. One way that we can validate what I've been saying here today about the right way and the wrong way to do affirmations. One way that we can validate these affirmations on the right, Benjamin mentioned this, is because the ones on the right offer a perspective that seems much more aligned with Scripture, but not only aligned with Scripture, but with prayer and the prayers that we know and the prayers that have been passed down through generation after generation. For instance, the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Already, the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi begins with an affirmation. I mean, that's what that is. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me so love. Where there is injury, pardon. Yeah, and pardon me while I, you go on a Christian site to read a prayer, and the first thing they do is bombard you with advertising that covers up the prayer that you're trying to read. I don't know about you, but that doesn't strike me as particularly Christian. But in any case, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console. Seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Yeah. So, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. And when we recite the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There is no prayer anywhere that sounds like New Age affirmations. So we can turn to the practices and the understandings that we have with regards to pardon me while I just this is so utterly maddening, this Windows 11. I'm trying to juggle a whole bunch of open windows because I've got the PowerPoint open in the background. And trying to get Windows to cooperate with the window is just a nightmare. All right. So where does that leave us? If we can agree that there's a right way to do there's a right way to do the affirmations, what happened to all my there they are. There's a right way to do affirmations. What about manifesting itself? What about visualization? And again, it's orienting ourselves in the right way in the scheme of things, remembering our place in the scheme of things. And if we want to visualize in order to manifest, we aren't putting ourselves and our desires at the center. In other words, it's others that we should be concerned about, because that's what God is concerned about. He's concerned about us insofar as our prosperity and ability and success to do his will, to successfully fulfill his will, which is to help and serve and save others, help others achieve awakening and self-realization and alleviate others' suffering. So there's no need necessarily for us to visualize ourselves, living in the lap of luxury or surrounded by riches or, fame or fortune or anything like that. Manifesting takes a great deal of energy in order to do, and that energy is sexual energy. It's creative energy. If we spend all of our energy on manifesting, then we risk depleting that energy and not utilizing it for our own process of awakening and self-realization, of comprehending our egos and eliminating our egos. That's not to say that we cannot utilize visualization and manifesting for the sake of others, because that's what we're here to do. Nor does it mean that we should avoid visualization and meditation, because by all means, that which can strengthen our connection to our higher self and to the being of beings, to the Christ, visualization can be a powerful tool in meditation. For instance, visualization and prayer in combination is one of the most potent and powerful forms of meditation. To visualize God and then pray to that visage that you are visualizing. And you can visualize God in whatever form speaks to your soul. And you can visualize, for instance, the Christ. You can visualize Jesus, because Jesus is the Christic force, is the absolute God force in activity. It's the perfect multiple unity. It is to us as a ray of light is to the sun, right? So the sun is there, but if the sun came and touched the earth would incinerate. So the sun sends out its rays, and it's the rays of light from the sun that give life and animate and heat and all that the earth needs to exist, that comes from the light that comes from the sun. But it's not the sun itself that comes to the earth, right? So the actual planet of the sun, the actual star, in other words, you can think of that as the crown, as Keter, the crown, or the absolute. And then the rays of light that journey forth through space to the four corners of the solar system, and indeed to the four corners of the galaxy. Those are the rays of light. Those are the Christic rays that emanate from the Father. So by meditating on one of those rays, by meditating on a representative or an expression, an embodiment, of that light, like Jesus, we are connecting back to the source of that light, and the source of the Christ is God. So whatever speaks to your heart as meaningful to you, so you can visualize Jesus and pray to Jesus, and do that in a very relaxed state. You relax, completely relax your body. You can't be in any tension whatsoever. You close your eyes and visualize a being of light, or Jesus, or Buddha, or Moses, or whoever, any master or an angel, an archangel, and visualize them and pray the Lord's Prayer, or from your heart, or the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, and relax and keep relaxing. And in doing so, you are strengthening your connection, but also you are orienting yourself correctly in the order of things. And when you do affirmations and you do them the right way, like as I showed you, then likewise, do those affirmations in meditation. Now, you can still use visualization, but now you will visualize that same deity, that Christ, and you would say an affirmation like, I live confidently each day, knowing that the source of my prosperity is God working through me and directing me. And you can visualize, right, Christ laying his hand on your shoulder, and you beginning to glow because he has laid his hand on your shoulder. He has your back. And you can watch that glowing golden blue light like an aura growing around you, or and welling up in your heart. And then you can visualize that light beaming out of your heart and enveloping the whole world with that golden blue light. And you can repeat the affirmation as you visualize accordingly the order of things, the scheme of things, and affirming all of this to yourself. And because imagination, now you are using your creative powers to reinforce for your mind and for yourself the reality which you wish to experience, which you wish to create. And that reality is one in which you are that vessel, right? That spigot for the wellspring that's deep in your heart, that is fed by the great source of the waters of life. And it should be noted that when we pray, you certainly can ask, and even in meditation, you certainly can ask to be shown things. And when you pray, you can ask for things if you need, or you can ask for burdens or hardships or karma or whatever that you're going through to to ease up, or to receive a reprieve or whatever, because maybe it's too much, maybe the burden is too much for you to bear or whatever. But if you have faith and you know that your innermost being and your divine mother know what you need at all times before you do, and that they know better, they know best, in fact, your prayer, even in the Our Father, in the Lord's Prayer, it says, thy will be done. And you can pray simply, I know that, I affirm that you have my back, and that it is in serving that we are served. And that so long as I pledge myself to serve you and to serve others, all that I am required to fulfill that duty, to fulfill my oath to you, you will provide me, and that you are already pushing the buttons and pulling the levers needed in order for that prosperity to flow into my life such that I may pass it forward, pay it forward, so that others may share in that prosperity of knowledge, that prosperity of love, that prosperity of care, of giving, of nurturing, of helping, of service. So we can use affirmations and visualizations in prayer not to ask as if God doesn't know what we need, but rather to affirm for ourselves and to proclaim, to testify before our innermost and before our innermost being and before the being of beings that I pledge and that I trust and I put my faith and trust in the Lord, and that I know that I will not be forsaken. So long as I do your will, I will not be forsaken. And that anything and everything that befalls me is part of my plan and is part of my journey. It's part of my path. And it's something that one way or another I have to get through. But that more likely than not, and more often than not, I am not qualified to get through it on my own. Rather, I bow down and I let my innermost beloved, my innermost intimate Christ work through me to overcome the test, trials, and ordeals. And I affirm that I will take all intuitive instruction and all the signs and all the serendipities and all the synchronicities that I am made aware of, and I will do everything in my power to serve and to fulfill the will of my innermost, because I'm not qualified to overcome the tests and challenges and ordeals that my true self is here to face. I am just the vehicle and the vessel by which that true self can face those challenges. And in this way, we shift. We make a profound shift from the I of our false self into the true self, our being, and the being of beings, the Christ. In my case, that's Attlas and Allux. All light and God light. The fire of fires, the light of lights, and the being of beings. Speaking of which, there's I don't know why these were turned off, but anyway, the names were turned off. Does anybody have any comments or questions? I suppose I might take a moment to elaborate on the graphic that's behind me, the painting. This is, of course, Jesus. Forcibly removing the moneylenders and the livestock traders from the temple. And devoting today's live stream to these mistakes of manifestation, it seemed to me a very appropriate image, because the money lenders and the livestock traders are exploiting the temple, and they're absconding, they're using the power of that place for their own material gain. And we know that allegorically, Jesus chasing them out of the temple is related to the elimination of egos that pollute our temple, our house of God, and that exploit what should be a temple to God, and they exploit it for their own gain. And so Jesus, the Christ, will have none of this. And the Christ comes and sweeps them away, eliminates them from our temple. So as we went through the affirmations, the affirmations on the left are the money lenders and the livestock traders and the status quo, business as usual during Passover, selling the sacrificial animals and making a good business, right? It's just the status quo. The affirmations on the left is before Jesus came. And the affirmations on the right, well, they put the I in its proper place. The Christ comes. And the Christ comes and occupies the temple. And when the Christ is in the temple, the moneylenders and the livestock traders, they got to go. And these bullshit, egotistical, fear-based and pride-based affirmations got to go. And in their place, we have the pledge, the oath to the Christ. And in no uncertain terms, Jesus makes his oath to his Father in heaven. Because the moment that he ejects the moneylenders and the livestock traders from the temple, he sealed his fate. He sealed his doom. Because the Pharisees and the Sadducees are going to see him crucified for it. So that's, hopefully I didn't really need to spell that out for you. But again, like Sam, who will wade into a lake, not being able to swim, he will risk drowning before he abandons and before he reneges on his oath to Gandalf to not leave Frodo's side. In the same way, Jesus of Nazareth, who was, just among other things, he was a man, wades into an ocean of political and theological controversy and financial and political economic outrage, and ejects the moneylenders and the livestock traders, and you rest assured, the temple, the Pharisees, were collecting a nice commission on every one of those sales and every one of those transactions. The temple got its cut. And this Jesus fellow comes along and literally overturns the tables and this system of exploitation and this racket that is being done under the auspices of spirituality. And he overturns that racket and he threatens the authority. He becomes in action a practical living embodiment of God's will. And he puts that, and he does his part, but in doing so, he risks crucifixion. He risks betrayal by the so-called holiest men in Israel and the holy leaders of Israel, because he's threatened their authority, and he's literally overturned their racket. And they're going to kill him for it. So it's like Sam wading in to a lake that he's going to drown in. Well, Jesus chasing the moneylenders, overturning the racket, and ejecting the moneylenders and livestock traders. He's wading into a lake of death. But that too was part of his path, just like Sam wading into that lake was part of his journey, his hero's journey, and Frodo's hero's journey. Very often, the affirmations are always of a so-called positive nature. We must remember that a path of suffering and sacrifice for others, there's going to be times when we're going to go through hardship and suffering, and we're going to have to make sacrifices. So that too needs to be part of our affirmations. And what we affirm is, no matter what comes my way, no matter how hard the hardships, how painful the suffering, how great the sacrifice, I put my faith and trust. I know that my Divine Mother devises all that I need, and that these two are essential to me in order for me to fulfill my duty and my purpose, to be a witting and willing participant, and truly a conscious, cooperative co-creator of God's will on earth. These are how affirmations need to be. So I'll ask you again, any questions or comments about today's topic or about anything really? I must tell you that I was always very skeptical and very negative on affirmations, because the only affirmations that I ever heard were these new age self-help ones, and they always left a bad taste in my mouth. Right? They're affirming the false self. They're self-aggrandizing, mystic pride. And no, they do not. You cannot become awakened or enlightened or self-realized by just telling yourself that, because that's just in the level of the mind. And even Master Samael points that out. We can only get so far through self-hypnosis and through subliminal messaging and through neurolinguistic programming and all the other stuff that can only take us so far. It can be useful and helpful if we do the affirmations correctly, and we've covered that today. It can be useful and helpful, but more importantly, we have to do the work to comprehend our egos, our defects and vices, and eliminate them with the help of our Divine Mother and the utilization of our sexual force for that purpose as well. Not just co-creating, not just manifesting, but also the other task, the really important task, which is ejecting the moneylenders from our temple. But now that I've found this better way to do affirmations, it's been important for me to recognize that I'm still immortal. I'm still a mortal. That came out sounding wrong. I'm still just a person. And not only that, I'm flawed, and I live with egos, and not just egos, but epilepsy and the demon of fear. And so my own conditioned beliefs around money, around prosperity, around success, and so on has meant that perhaps I have closed doors on that which has been trying to flow into my life. But now I have affirmations that I can do to open those doors without any fear or guilt or any of those bad feelings, any of that icky feeling that there's something wrong, because doing it with the other affirmations, it was wrong. It didn't feel right. But now the affirmations have come into my life that I can do these on a daily basis and affirm that through my innermost and the essence and spirit of prosperity, that is the source of all selflessness, the absolute abstract essence of selflessness behind the entire universe, that the prosperity and success, that spirit of selflessness longs to see expressed and fulfilled as the so-called will of God, that all of that can freely flow into and through me, that I may share it with others. It is a complete 180 degree turn on unlimited abundance flows into my life. Right? No. The absolute abstract essence of selflessness, the source of the ultimate abundance behind the whole of the universe, flows through me into the world. So it's, for me personally, this is a very positive and productive and proactive step forward for me at my level, at the mortal level, because I've done a lot of work, right, with my connection to Attlas and to Allux, and did a lot of work in the supernal higher selves and so on, but somehow the mortal got neglected. My mind, because I didn't do these affirmations. I didn't do, because I didn't know how to do affirmations properly. But now I do. And so that's why I wanted to share that with you as well, so that you would benefit from that. And already these doing affirmations in these ways and changing my prosperity mindset has already started to confer dividends, has already started to deliver precisely what has been missing in my life, but because there were blockages, mental blocks that were preventing it from flowing into my life. So now that's why I had in the thumbnail to today's live stream, I and in the title I said there's the secret key, the key to manifesting, the key to affirmations, the key to prayer. It's like I had the key now. So I can add these to my daily practices to cultivate the mortal who is ultimately the portal, right? The spigot. And if the spigot is turned off or it's blocked, well, it can't, the pressure can build up, but it can't flow. So now it's like this whole today's topic just opened everything up, and now things can begin to flow as they need to and we're meant to. So that's encouraging and very positive and exciting for me, and I hope that you as well can make use of these affirmations, and the right kind of affirmations as a key to turn and unlock any blockages, any mental blocks, any false beliefs or negative self-talk or anything else that might be going on in you emotionally or subconsciously, consciously, that's prevented you from receiving, that's prevented you from allowing, and that's prevented you from embracing your role as Samwise for your own innermost Frodo. Because these affirmations, you too can make an oath, can make a pledge to your innermost Gandalf. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. All right, last call for questions or comments or anything else. Benjamin says, the am. I am that I am. Eheye Asher Eheye. The great I am. So yeah, so after I'm done here today, I've got to go over to the house because there are people coming to buy some furniture, because that too is finally starting to take care of itself. We can start emptying out the house of all the furniture and then get on with the painting and doing everything else we need to do to get it on the market, etc. Benjamin says, thank you for this very helpful information. I have a question. What if the words we use get in the way of our prayers? How do you mean? You have to give me an example, because if you do, how can we truly express our spirit in prayer? What comes to your heart? I mean, it's not rocket science, and it's not something you think your way through. It's something you feel. It's like I'd ask you the same question, like, how do you write love poetry to your wife? Or how do you, do pillow talk with her when you're in bed? I mean, is it premeditated? Do you think about it? Do you, like, you speak from your heart? And in terms of, you know, uh like when you say, what if the words we use get in the way of our prayers? If you do the affirmations correctly, as you pointed out, the affirmations that we were looking at today, the ones on the right, you said yourself, they seem very aligned with scripture. So what the heck is going on? Um, let's try this again. Honestly, this Windows 11 is a catastrophe. Um, it's I cannot simply cannot get these windows to work properly. Okay, so if we are doing the affirmations like we are on the right, how can any of these words interfere with your prayers? Right? There's nothing here that would interfere with anything that you would be praying for. Okay, so Benjamin says, for example, let me change this. He says, for example, sometimes when I pray in English, sometimes I feel the expression is insufficient. The same is true with the other language I use, but I tell the Father that he already knows what's my what my heart already knows my heart. Look, I also uh speak fluently in 2 languages, and I was an altar boy in Hungarian, so I know all the hymns and all the prayers, and I know the entire mass, the entire Catholic mass in both English and Hungarian. So there's nothing, and there's some things that are more beautifully expressed and more emotionally expressed, if you will, in Hungarian than they are in English. There's nothing strange about that. And but there are other things that I can express more succinctly and clearly in English than I would in Hungarian. There's nothing strange about that either. But this question or this feeling that somehow my expression is insufficient, this is a judgment that the mind makes. It's that, of course, for example, uh, if we're trying to write about the truth and nature of love, of course our words are going to be insufficient. And if we're trying to capture the ultimate absolute glory of God, of course our words are going to be insufficient. They're never going to be sufficient. There is no sufficiency to be had, because the Word, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It is only through his expression of that word. And even then, it's never enough. It's never sufficient. I mean, it is to a point, it is to a degree. But that's like asking how long is a piece of string? What are the limits of God's love? That you envision words sufficient enough to encapsulate those limits. Do you see what I'm saying? But what we don't want to do is fret about it or worry about it or intellectualize too much about it. Like we have to get out of our head. There's this parable. that I once heard a priest say. No, wasn't a priest. It was Wayne Dyer. I mentioned him earlier. Wayne Dyer, in one of his talks, talked about these old men in the village, but they were hermits who lived outside of the village, and once a year they would come out of their and come to the crossroads in the middle of the village, and they would look each other in the eye and they would say, "I am free, you are free, God be praised." And they would turn around and they would go back to their caves. These yogis, these hermits, and the point of the parable, I don't want to get into all the details, but the point of the parable is that their simple prayer coming down, I am free, you are free, God be praised. There was more meaning and faith and spirit in their simple prayer and exchanging that simple prayer once a year with one another than there were in all the hymns and all the prayers and all the memorized everything that the church going populace and the fire and brimstone preacher in the village said every Sunday, because he used to go on tirades denouncing the old men in the caves because they don't come to church, they don't know how to pray. And it turns out that that prayer, I am free, you are free, God be praised, to live and let live, to allow, to let go and let God, was closer to the true nature of selflessness than was the fire and brimstone preacher and his prescription on his flock, and how he was personally insulted by the old men who refused to come and learn and pray properly. Benjamin says, yes, our knowledge of words is limited, but God knows the eternal, and that's all that matters, and he understands our shortcomings. Well, that's another way to look at it. And another way to look at it is, I'm not qualified. So let the words come. And if they don't come, then fine, just feel in your heart. And if they do come, and if what comes is, I am free, you are free, God be praised, then go with it. Don't judge it, and don't say, oh my God, that can't be sufficient. Because, it's Sam's pledge to Frodo. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. Right? I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Like, be a simple gardener. There's more faith, there's more truth, there's more courage and honesty in Samwise Gamgee than there is in Boromir and in Boromir's father and in all the mighty halls of Middle Earth. The greatest courage and honesty and wisdom on display in the whole of the Lord of the Rings are some of its most humble and modest characters and simple characters like Sam. If you want to talk about shortcomings, you can't get much shorter than the hobbits, right? Let's be more compassionate toward ourselves in the way that God is compassionate towards us. Let us not judge ourselves, lest we think that we are worthy of judging ourselves, judging anybody. Because more often than not, we are our own worst critic. And rest assured that if you speak words from your heart, fully intending to relay your deep, abiding love and faith and devotion to your innermost being and the being of beings and your divine mother and the Holy Spirit, and rest assured that God is not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. He's not going to reject your words because they are insufficient. This is God does not think that way. People think that way, right? Snobs think that way. The elite think that way. I once had a girlfriend. I've told this story before. I once had a girlfriend who I wanted to take on a first date. I took her to a cafe, a nice cafe where they have nice desserts and stuff, but it was closed. So, and this cafe was out in the middle of nowhere, and there was nothing else nearby except a Second Cup, which was a Canadian kind of coffee chain, kind of like Starbucks, but it predated Starbucks. So I said, listen, we actually walked right up to the cafe and saw that it was closed. And I said, listen, this is where I wanted to take you, but I didn't know it was closed on Thursday. So, but there's a Second Cup there. Why don't we just go there and grab a coffee now? And then I'll make it up to you next time. We'll come back here next time. She said, oh yeah, sure. No problem. And we had a lovely evening chatting away, having coffee and the Second Cup. Again, it was just like Starbucks. And then I didn't hear from her for a week. And when I finally called her and got hold of her, I said, so what's the story? Is it something wrong? She goes, I can't believe you took me to the Second Cup on our first date. And she said it just like that. I can't believe how dare you take me to a franchise coffee bar on our first date. Okay, so God is not like that. God is not like that. Right? If you took God out, if you took Jesus out for a cup of coffee, you could take him to Tim Hortons, you could take him to Dunkin' Donuts and buy Jesus a coffee. Jesus is not going to say to you, how dare you take me to Dunkin' Donuts? Right? Oh yeah, no, you know what? That's not even the funniest part of the story, Benjamin. The funniest part of the story was I eventually got out of the doghouse and I said, well, let me make it up to you. And so we did end up dating. And it was like months later, we were in the Path in downtown Toronto. And the Path is an underground mall. It runs alongside the subway and it connects all the subway stations, but it also connects all the financial towers and everything downtown, but it's all underground. And she worked in one of those financial towers. And so when we were going through the Path, we walked by a Starbucks. And she said, oh, there's that Starbucks. That's my favorite place to go to have coffee. I go and grab a coffee there every single day after lunch. So that was the hilarious part, because from that point forward, all of my friends started calling her Coffee Girl. Because the same woman who was incensed and insulted that I would take her to the Second Cup on our first date, it turns out that she loves Starbucks and she gets Starbucks coffee every single day on her lunch hour on work. So you want to talk about shallow? That's how shallow this woman ended up being. She was a very brand oriented, financial oriented individual. And the long and the short of it, we didn't date for very much longer after that. because I mean, even back then, I mean, I was in my 20s. I was still foolish and an idiot, but still, uh, I mean, I had to draw the line somewhere. But it became, it was a funny story, and it was a funny anecdote, and all my friends just got a kick out of it. That coffee girl, right? The woman who loves Starbucks, but I can't believe you took me to the second cup. I mean, it was priceless. It's priceless. Hollywood couldn't write a character who behaved that way. Or if they did, it was like this was years before Seinfeld existed, but this was like an episode of Seinfeld. She was Coffee Girl. Anyway, so the reason I tell you that story though is that God is not like that. God doesn't look a gift horse in the mouth. The way we pray and how we show our devotion is a lot of it is the fact that we're making an effort at all, and that we're doing something, we're showing something, we're making an effort, and that is not, that is seen, that is heard, that is appreciated, right? So we don't have to um we don't have to fall for the fear and the doubt that comes along with, oh my God, my prayers aren't sufficient. So anyone else, any more comments or questions or concerns or anything else before we call it a day here? I would like to thank you, of course, for being here again today and spending another Sunday afternoon with me and with all of us. I hope that you have a great week ahead. I hope that spring is on the doorstep wherever you may be in the world. Uh, for me, it's 11 degrees Celsius right now as we speak, and the sun is shining outside. So actually, we've had a couple of really nice days. And now it's still just March. We could still get blasted with snow, and God only knows what other, like old man winter could still come and give us one more blast of winter. But hopefully where you are, spring is starting to come in, and that with that, all sorts of new renewal and new life starts flowing into your world and your life as well. So spring is a time of renewal, of rebirth, of new opportunities, of new projects, new ventures, new approaches, new insights, new, right? Embarking on new and tremendous and exciting journeys. So may this week, may you affirm to yourself that as you are here today, pledging yourself to be a conscious, cooperating co-creator of the enterprises which will manifest and fulfill the will of your innermost essence of God. Affirm to yourself that so long as you maintain that oath, that you pledge yourself and maintain your loyalty, your humility, and your honesty to that task, to be that vessel and that spigot and that conduit for that will of God to flow through you into the world. Affirm to yourself here and now that all that you need in order to be able to fulfill that oath shall come to you in its due time. and affirm to yourself right here and right now, so be it, so be it, so be it. Amen, amen, amen. Benjamin says, thank you, sir, for today's wonderful topic. Wishing you a blessed week ahead. Thanks, Benjamin. Thank you for your comments and participation as always. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And until then, as always, inferential peace. Take care.